Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Greyscalegorilla podcast. This is episode 53. Doing something a little bit different this time. We've got ourselves a guest. We've got Dave Brodeur. Say hi, Dave.
How's it going, guys? What's up?
What is up? And of course, as always, we got Chris.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Good. So Nick is out gallivanting around the country and is not available for this episode. So, Nick, if you're out there, don't kill yourself on a ski slope or something like that. But we're stoked to have David here. Dave is a big part of GSG. He's been helping us out with a lot of different things. He teaches. How many classes are you teaching now? One or two?
For GSG, I got one.
Okay, so Dave teaches one animation class for us, but then he also helps out with amazing renders on our daily renders. And you may know his work from his Instagram, which is Locked and Loading, which is a hugely popular Instagram account. Or what do you even call that? A person? I mean, it's just you, right? I mean, Locked and Loading
is Instagram. It's unto itself.
Yeah. So yeah, you may have seen his stuff. He's got these really cool like organic shapes coming out of like rock formations, and they're kind of bubbly and organic, and they look like something that you'd find like on an alien planet or something. They're really cool. So what's new? Let's I guess we should start off by talking about a little bit of news before we jump into interrogating Dave here.
Nice.
What's going on? Well, Chris, why don't you talk about the meetup that just happened? I think that was a really successful meetup.
Yeah, so we just had a meetup at the Mill last Wednesday, and it was the biggest turnout we've ever had, where we had 100 people. Well, we don't have the final count, but 100 people were supposed to show up. I think at least 90 did. And we had another 50 people on the waiting list, which was crazy. But we finally got to go to the Mill. They work out of the Google building in Chicago. So that was super cool to see, a nice big office. And just by sheer coincidence, it was the Chicago branch of the Mill's 4th anniversary, which was cool. And it was the same day that they released all the information about their Blackbird, like real-time rendering, like superimposing a car on top of their adjustable car rig in that you could be a director driving around seeing what it's really going to look like. So that all kind of happened on the same day, so that worked out really well. They had a one of those Vibe tilt brush,
the Vibe,
the VR thing, and that was pretty neat. I enjoyed the paintbrush existing in 3D space. So yeah, huge turnout, super fun. So we'll have to go. I already told them we're going to check back in on them in a year and see what they're up to. Come hang out again, because that was amazing.
Yeah, it was a great turnout. I was really interested in that Blackbird thing. Dave, you ever heard of this thing before? You ever?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's a car that they had manufactured for shooting cars that either A, don't exist yet, or B, are so new that they're not allowed to be photographed. It's a big problem, actually. I've shot some car stuff. I actually shot a car thing that was a top secret car, and I know how hard that is and how expensive that is. And so to have this rig that essentially you can put any other car on top of this car is pretty cool. So
if you're not familiar, the Blackbird rig, they can put any kind of wheel on it, and they can like lengthen the car or widen the car. So it can kind of adapt to any wheelbase.
Yep, yeah. I'm very aware of it. Been following them. Actually, yeah, they talked about it at Pause Fest too. So
we're
there.
Nice.
Yep.
I was a little bit like skeptical though on like why. I mean, I thought, here's the thing, like I think it's cool that the whole Unreal Engine thing being able to like have the DP being able to, the whole purpose of what they announced was that you're going to now real time be able to have a tracked car body on top of the Blackbird using the Unreal Engine. Now it's not for final delivery. It's not what you're going to see in the commercial or whatnot. It's just so the DP can have something to frame up on, and the client can maybe swap colors or whatnot. So it kind of is crazy. Like it's a really fancy, expensive thing just so the DP can have something to frame up. Like it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Anyway, but it was pretty damn cool. And I wish they had brought one in to drive, because that would have been fun.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that's viable.
I would love to drive that thing. And it's electric too, which is crazy. I think it probably can go pretty damn fast. Anyway, so yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. And we saw a lot of people there, a lot of the regular folks, and quite a few new faces that I didn't recognize.
Yeah, people come out of the woodwork to go to a new studio, especially if it's the mill.
Right. Yeah, and the Google building. I mean, that's kind of cool. It was huge, and it's just like in the middle of this district of town, part of town that you just don't see buildings like that.
It's a meat packing district.
Right. Yeah.
Right across the street, they're like packing eggs up and chopping up lamb.
Right.
Yes, I used to work right across the street from it actually, and we used to have the most disgusting dump trucks come in and pick up the garbage outside in the meat packing district, and everyone would flock to the windows and just watch it dump in.
Oh my god!
Every day.
Meat dump day. Those were famous.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah,
dude, you couldn't look away.
No, you had to watch.
Well, what else is new in news? We've got we launched a new version. An update. Sorry, not a new version. Update to HDRI Link, which, if you don't, those that you don't know, that fixes a problem that Redshift made some changes in their alpha, and we had to update it to fix it. So if you're a Redshift user and Link wasn't working for you, go download your new version, and it should be working for you now. We also announced GSG LUTs, which is a new color grading tool that's going to be coming out very soon. A lot of people talking about that, excited about that.
Your commercials you made for that were awesome.
Yeah,
we should link to that commercial actually.
Yeah, we'll link to it. Yeah, why not? I mean, it was a lot of fun to make. Sometimes it's fun to kind of do those types of things again. I haven't done one of those in a while, so it's good. But the real reason that we're here is to talk about Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And let's I want to know, people may have seen you on our site. People may have followed you on Instagram. Can you tell me a little bit about where you started? How'd you get into this business? And I know you have a Chicago connection, so can you take us through that?
Yeah. I actually got started more traditional kind of art, but I'll probably skip to that and just kind of go into my background a little bit in the art world. I'm traditionally a graphic designer. That was where my education lies. And then it was kind of like seamless. I didn't want to move to New York. I grew up in Philly, and New York was just too familiar for me. Wasn't really into the scene in LA. And I was just looking for other cool studios in the country. And at that time, it was really the only other one was Chicago. And so it was that simple. I'm like, oh, Chicago seems kind of cool. Never been there. And I went up, and that was kind of my transition into Chicago. It was really just because I thought it'd be a cool city to try out. And then through my college experience as a graphic designer, I got really excited and into animation. And so I'm just self-taught After Effects user, self-taught Cinema 4D user, and got to a studio in Chicago. And it was an entirely Maya studio, and I picked it up and just hated it. and now you got to figure though, this is quite some time ago now, 7-8 years ago, and so cinema was just about to take off. It was just in that early stages, and a lot of veteran Maya artists absolutely hated the software, and so I was completely the odd man out using Cinema 4D. But I saw its benefits for the studio, and that kind of evolved. And eventually, by the time I left, I think there was equal or more Cinema 4D artists at the studio than Maya at that point. But yeah, there's a lot of battles between Cinema and Maya just by default of people not wanting to change and things like that. But yeah. I mean, the experience is always good in the motion design industry, and being flexible and being able to change. So that's what got me to Chicago, and being a motion designer, but just all self-taught, self-learning. So yeah.
So when you were at the studio that was predominantly Maya based, what was the catalyst for it started out with just you, and then more people started? You said when you left it was like more people using Cinema almost. What was the catalyst there? Like, what was the reason?
Well, for me, I remember one day specifically, I was asked to do a pitch we were doing for MTV at the time, and it was a TV show. It never got aired, but we worked on the pitch for it anyway. And I did it over the weekend, and I was doing stuff with like Tracer and just like some basic MoGraph tools. at 8 years ago were like pretty exciting, right, at the time. And I did something, came in that following Monday, and everyone surrounded my workstation and we're like, how the hell did you make this over the weekend? Like, this would have taken us 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I'll just show you. And I showed everyone in 2 minutes. And at that point,
it's a great feeling, by the way.
I think the light bulb went off in at least a couple people that were like, okay, I'll give it a go. And then slowly and surely, I just kind of press, like, it's using the right tool for the job. And Maya is an amazing tool, but I'm like, we're doing a lot more motion graphic stuff, and I'm telling you, I've got the right tool for the job. And so it'll take us less time, we can take in more jobs, we can produce them quicker. And so I tried to just sell that idea to the owners, really.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people are they don't, if you're a Maya user back then, I mean, I was right there with them. I thought Cinema 4D was like this, BS program that only did like, low end kind of motion graphic stuff. And then right around the time that MoGraph came out, and probably a little bit after, I started to realize that, like, wow, this tool is actually really versatile and like has a lot to offer. And quite honestly, I was in the same boat. Like, we weren't doing, I mean, there's no reason for us to use Maya when I was at DK at the time, because we weren't doing any like hardcore character work. We were doing predominantly either motion design or kind of more VFX-y stuff.
Yeah.
And it didn't really, you could do it in either or. And then around that time, there was just like this huge influx in Chicago of Cinema 4D artists. And I think I want to say for every single Max or Maya freelancer, there was like 10 Cinema 4D freelancers. So there was, you just couldn't, you just had to kind of, at one point you just had to like throw your hands up in there and be like, all right, well, I guess this is where it's going. I better dive in, So what about, so what happened? You were at Lyft for a while, and then you ended up in Florida. How did that happen?
I actually wish I was at Lyft. I never made it to Lyft. I was talking to Jason White while Lyft was still around, and then maybe 2 months before I was ready to go, Lyft was no longer there, and then I went to Leviathan, because that's where Jason White went, and I was talking to him. And so I missed Lyft, but the whole reason I wanted to move to Chicago was because I liked the work that Lyft did. I worked at Leviathan, though. So what was your second part of the question? What got me down in Florida?
Yeah, how did you end up with a boat in Florida?
Oh, man, crazy story. I mean, it really just came down to, it was time for me to move on. It's time for me to move on from what I was doing. I feel like a lot of artists, we get to this point just working on client jobs constantly, and following the creative direction of other people sometimes can be challenging when you want to kind of branch out and do your own thing. And what I was really excited about was kind of my personal work that was really taking off. And that was what was getting me freelance work as well. It wasn't my client projects that I was doing at the studio. It was me working on the weekend and kind of like messing around and coming up with something because I wanted to. And then clients were coming and saying, hey, can you work in freelance for us? And I was like, all right, cool. And no one was saying, hey, the title sequence you did is fantastic. Can you work with us? They were like, hey, that weird thing that you made, can you work with us? And so I don't know. I got really excited about, maybe I don't need to be at a studio to be relevant. And I always loved Greyscalegorilla, always loved teaching and helping and sharing what I knew with other people. And an opportunity came down to be a professor at my alma mater, actually, Ringling College of Art and Design. And I just leaped at it. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. My wife and I, she had a really successful job in Chicago as well. And we just made a pact. We said, whoever can get a job first then in Florida, we'll just move and the other person will figure it out. And sure enough, the Ringling thing came through. So it was kind of amazing, but it's a perfect balance because now I get to constantly be on top of Cinema 4D because I'm teaching it every single day in After Effects and animation. And then on top of that, I get enough time to run my own freelance firm and do side projects and do the things that I actually love to do. And I can actually pick and choose what client jobs I take because I'm not dependent on that. You know, I'm not dependent on a check for my freelance job, so I can turn down the things that I'm not interested in doing. So all these thoughts were kind of going through my mind. And it's fortunate the time we live in now, you don't have, and you're talking half res's point to this, the time we live in now, you don't actually have to be on location anymore to kind of run your own thing. And so I'm here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and yeah, I mean, the jobs still come in, so
that's crazy.
It's cool.
That's a really interesting thing, though, what you're just saying about your personal work kind of being the thing that jump started everything. And it wasn't the work that you were doing and getting paid for during the day. It was the work that you were passionate about, that you were doing on your own. That was what ended up bringing you to where you are now, which that's a cool lesson, I think, for people to learn. I mean, what would you say to somebody if they're at a studio, maybe they're not super happy where they're at, and they want to get to their own version of Florida? What advice would you give them?
My thing is, and I say this all the time, it's when you're done work, go back and work. And what I mean by this is not like when you're done your 8 or 10 hour day, like, you know, stay at the studio and just keep working on that same project. I'm like, no, when you're done with that 8 or 10 hour day, go home, or stay at the studio, but work on a project because you want to make it, not for anyone else. And I think, you know, and I'm just speaking on what's worked for me, and that's kind of where my success has come from, is that I've never been tired of creating. You know, sometimes I'm tired of doing client work sometimes, but I've never been burnout where I'm like, I just don't want to use 3D anymore because I've done it all week. It's like, no, I've been wanting to make this one cool thing, and none of the client projects are allowing me to make this, so I'm going to make it on my own and to get it out of my system. So when work's done, go back and work, and see if you can build up clients from that. You guys were talking in the podcast, I think it might have been last week or the week before, but like, you don't get hired for work unless you show that you've already done that work. And right. And I think that's really important. So do the work that you want to do, and then, you know, hopefully the clients will follow. So
no, that's go ahead, Chris.
I have found in 3D, like you're saying, Dave, it's hard to get bored in 3D to not be creative, because you might get bored with maybe modeling, but then you can go do some lighting, or maybe you can go do some texturing, or you can go try and do some animation, or just do some crazy motion graphics, maybe spend some time in After Effects. But if you get bored with an aspect of 3D, there's so many other ones to tackle.
Oh yeah.
But how did you end up like meeting Nick and getting involved in Greyscalegorilla?
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I talked to Nick several times at different motion graphic meetups in Chicago. You know, just kind of going out and different industry parties and stuff like that. Nick was actually the first person I talked to before I came to Chicago. He was the one who directed me towards Lyft. So, you know, our conversations have extended back, you know, 8 years now or more. And so I always just kept talking to him, and I loved the stuff that he was doing, and I loved the tools that, you know, Greyscalegorilla was like creating. And I always just kept in contact with him. And then I worked on one side project, and I'm like, and I used Texture Kit Pro and I used Light Kit Pro, and I shot it over to him. And Nick was like, "Oh man, this is so great! How did you make these textures?" Like, and I was like, "I use Texture Kit Pro," and I talked about how I tried to plus the textures and stuff like that. And then he threw it was a piece. It was called Identity Transmute, and it was another one of those passion projects that I did because I wanted to do like logo and rebranding and stuff design, and I wasn't getting that in the studio. And then sure enough, that he put it on the site, and it just blew up, you know. And I don't know, we've been kind of chatting ever since then. And then right before I moved out of Chicago, I was like, you know what? Nick's got such an amazing following, and online animation courses and online like training is like so popular right now. And there's only a couple places doing it. And so I was sitting at on the rooftop at Rock Bottom. And it was like 2 days before I was leaving. And I was like, I'm going to write Nick an email. And I was like, Nick, I got this idea. I think it'd be great for Greyscalegorilla. And I'm sorry, I'm actually leaving in like 2 days and moving from Chicago. And he's like, that's so funny. He's like, I'm moving from Chicago too. And I'm only here for 2 days. He's like, you want to grab lunch tomorrow? And so we did. And we started chatting about doing like online, like training animation classes and offering these classes. And he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about it, but I wasn't sure. and he was talking to Joey Cornman at School of Motion, and so he had already been kind of thinking about this too. And then when I came in, and I'm like, and I'm, I can back it up. I'm a professor. I teach 2D and 3D animation now, and I can bring that in, and I don't know. And so I mean, so it's a long time ago, but it's kind of all built up, and kind of we've kind of combined forces more and more. So I don't know. It's fantastic.
Following up on that, when we ran the first class, it was kind of like the beta practice one, and it was like, we're looking for feedback from everybody, and so you did that one. But how many have you done in total so far for Greyscalegorilla? Is that 3, 4?
I think I've done like 4. Yeah, I think I've done four now.
Yeah, so you've done 4 classes for us, and those have gone really well, and it's been working so well that we're starting to look into expanding that. So I'm in the beginning processes of building my first course on there. I'm hoping to do an intro to espresso. So I've been talking with you a little bit about some of the pitfalls and things to look out for. So no promises to anybody. I don't know when that's going to be out. It's probably a long ways away, but I'm working on it. And then not only that, it has to get prepared, and then we have to have like a big old open 2 months where I'm going to be able to dedicate the time to actually interacting with students on that. But definitely something I'm excited about. And I don't think any of the class stuff would have executed, or at least not for a while, if you hadn't gotten involved early on.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited about your espresso class for sure. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah, me too. Heck yeah.
I'll be in there. I don't know how I'll be maybe I'll be in the front row. Is there a digital front row? I don't even know how it works. Well, that's cool, man. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, since we have you, is a little bit about your workflow, in particular about your daily stuff. Like that look that you've got going with the organic stuff. Tell us about how that started, and then I want to I had a question kind of specifically along those lines. If I can follow up, and Dave, you tell me if I've got this right or completely wrong. But I was telling the story, I think, the other day on Ask GSG, but didn't you see like the bare bones skeleton of that on an Ask GSG?
100%, yeah.
You took it and turned it into like an entire genre. Am I right in that, or
no?
Chris is looking to take full credit for.
No. I think that's a success story for listen, I'm going to talk about the technical. You guys take that as raw material and make something cool with it.
Right.
So. Yeah, no, that's 100%. I was sharing that with you at Half Res, and you were breaking down a Houdini tutorial on there, and I always have your Ask GSGs on, and whether I'm working or not, I'll just throw them in the background. If not, and when you say something, because you approach things differently than I would a lot of times, and so then I'm like, okay, what is he doing? And I click over, and I was paying attention, and it was right at the time I was working on a Nike spot. And I was like, oh man, this would be perfect. I need to do like these air pockets for Nike. And so I started pitching those. And then out of that, because I was doing, more clean, Nike looking stuff. And then from my personal, I was like, I kind of want to make weird little alien creature plants thing. But yeah, no, it all stemmed from watching the Ask GSG thing and kind of discovering like a new technique to achieve something. And then, yeah.
It was a really fun full circle thing, because somebody asked a question about something in Houdini, which has been happening more and more. It's like, well, okay, let's see if we can figure out a way to do it in cinema. And I came up with a very parametric way of doing it. I don't remember all the details, but there was some, like the poly effects are in there, like extruding things up from certain polys and whatnot. But I do that. You saw that. You start making a whole series and like all of the daily renders, and you made like a little short film out of them. I'll just be randomly on Reddit, and then that'll pop up in like imaginary sci-fi or something. It's like, I know that.
Yeah.
And then eventually I have, a season later in Ask GSG, I have people saying, hey, how do I make this thing from Locked and Loaded?
Wow.
Yeah, it's like oh my
deja
God,
vu moment.
It came back around again.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
I actually evolved it, and now doing a totally different technique. It's a lot more work, but it's the next evolution. I keep looking at stuff that's happening in Houdini, and I feel like I just have to try to pick it up eventually, because I'm like trying to emulate things that just seem to come naturally to Houdini. And so doing the poly, like the Mo extrude and that stuff to get the one look that I saw from you, worked great. And then I got like past that point. I'm like, okay, because I just saw it was everywhere after a while. And then I was like, okay, I definitely have to like try a different technique. And so now I'm actually hand sculpting and using pose morphing between them. So it's like double the amount of work at least, but at least it's unique again, you know. It's got like different kind of forms and stuff like that. And so like I'll hand sculpt two pieces of geometry and then morph between them and then apply delay effectors and to give it more of like a gooiness and stuff like that to it. And then I was like, okay, how do I take it to the next spot? And so now that you can use well, I'm using different mixed materials and stuff like that to just like change up the textures and so I'm trying to continue to evolve it and not just like stick with one method, but it's a similar look. But if you're getting questions from people like, yeah, but how's he doing this one? It's actually a little different now that you can actually produce that same look using the Mo extrude effect. So,
well, do you think you'll ever pick up Houdini? At the meetup that we just had, there was a lot of people talking about wanting to learn Houdini, and I feel like there's this. It's kind of like, it seems like a lot of Cinema 4D users are thinking that that's another tool that they want to have under their belt.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, that's a big conversation. I am thinking about it. I'm thinking about it to the point where I downloaded it off Houdini's site because they'll let you download it for free. But I just haven't had the time to jump into it. I don't know. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of artists, and it's easy to get caught up in this, especially in the 3D world, are all looking just for the right answer, and they're asking how do you do it instead of why are you doing it. And so that leads to a lot of artists looking for the tool to solve that, which I think is fine. But if you can come up with a concept first, the tool should support the concept. And I notice a lot of things look the same because you're not actually creating the concept. You're coming up with the tool and then forming the concept around the tool. So I don't know. I hope, if people jump into Houdini, I know if I jumped into Houdini right now, my stuff would just look like everybody else's. So I got to have a concept worthy enough for me to want to use Houdini. So
yeah, I kind of feel like I'm gonna get to that point where I'm gonna start to learn it, and it's just kind of an inevitable part of I think where I want to just kind of learn it all. And I'm still learning cinema, man. I haven't even been using it that long, so I don't feel like I'm ready to like just open up Houdini and start learning yet. But I know that it's going back to what you were saying when you were working at Leviathan and you were doing things that the people next to you couldn't do, and they would come over to your desk and be like, whoa, how'd you do that? I feel like that is happening right now. Now I feel like almost like some cinema is becoming that for Houdini. There's somebody doing something like Man versus Machine is doing something in Houdini that nobody's ever seen before, and everybody's like, oh my god, like this is insane, how are they doing this? Or Chris is getting tons of questions about these ridiculous executions, and it's almost always Houdini. That I kind of feel like at a certain point when you're creating abstract things and just really original ideas that, like you said, are not based around necessarily a function or a tool, that you need, once you've kind of elevated your work to a certain level, you need a tool that can just do anything. It has no handcuffs. I mean, the only handcuffs are, your ability to learn it. And that's what I think is cool about Houdini and why I'm excited to someday learn it. It's not anything I'm going to do soon, but the fact that it really is this like total, anything goes kind of system. I mean, I've seen really amazing hard surface, like visual effect buildings blowing up. And then I've seen like the stuff that Man vs. Machine does. They're just like total organic, abstract, cool stuff. And it's interesting. We can do a lot of that stuff in cinema, but then at some point you're just like, dude, that's Houdini, man. You just got to use Houdini for that.
Yeah, exactly. I like your kind of take on it though, where you're like, I still got way too much learning to do in cinema before I jump into Houdini, because I have a lot of people, younger artists asking me, they're like, hey, how can I learn Houdini? And And my first thought, I'm like, is like, you don't even know like Cinema 4D yet, and you want to jump to Houdini, and that's fine. But I feel like Houdini is such a bigger beast to take on, and anyone who's like jumped into it says that as well. It's like, well, it's a lot different. It's not Cinema 4D, and if you think it is when you jump in, you're probably not going to like it. Yeah. And so I don't know. It's like, you gotta, it's the phrase, like, you gotta, walk before you run kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know, just understanding the idea of 3D from some of the more traditional ones like Cinema 4D or Maya or, whatever, might be like the better way to start and introduce yourself. But I don't know, than just jumping in a Houdini. So
yeah, I kind of feel like it's not one of those programs that you should just dabble in, like it feels, and I know a few artists that are learning it right now, and these are like really smart artists that I know are way more technically on top of it than I am. So they're telling me what they're doing, and they love it and everything, but it's a real commitment. I mean, you really it's not just like dip your toe in and like do a few things and then dip your toe back out. It's like, if you really want to understand the paradigm of how that program works, you got to like dive in, and you have to like make an effort to understand the entire process of how Houdini works.
Everybody, I keep having people tell me over and over again that they think I should try and dive into Houdini, and I probably should, because I do like the technical end of things. But it sounds like Cinema 4D is the best if you want like a frictionless experience between doing like, doing the 3D and then being able to be artistic with it. Where this sounds like, no, there is friction. You need a lot of knowledge to wrangle it to make it do what you want, and then it can do amazing things. So the ease of use is not going to be there, but it's going to have a much higher skill cap.
I bet you, Chris, of all people, would probably appreciate it the most, because it's all parametric, it's all live, it's all literally nodes, making everything is just, a big node tree really, and everything is live. So you can really get as parametric with it as you want. And I would love to see you learn. I think it would be fun to watch what you come up with, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Anyway, let's chat a little bit about your you said you're doing all these what do you call the series? Is there a name for the series?
Yeah, I switch it up each time, because I try to change the theme up a little bit. So right now I'm in the sight series. So all the creatures have like little eyeballs or something like that. Okay. So yeah, I try to change it up. Even if it's small, I try to change it up a little bit each time. So,
and these are all using Octane predominantly.
Only Octane.
Only Octane. So yeah. What are and you use Octane in production too. So can you tell us a little bit about your gear setup and how that evolved, and maybe a little bit about your workflow?
Yeah. When I first built my machine, right, when I moved down to Florida, I wasn't sold. It was too early yet to know if I wanted to build a GPU machine. And so I just did one GPU in there. I did a 980 and I did a 5960X i7. And so I was like, I'm going to split the difference. I'll spend a little bit more on CPU so I can kind of wrangle that. But I had the slots to throw in some more GPUs. And then maybe 8 months later, after I realized I was gonna go off for the Octane and GPU rendering, and so I got 3 more 980 Ti's for that machine, and all water cooled, and I was loving it. And then I was like, I need more. If I'm going to do this in a production workflow, I was just making dailies at that point. I was like, if I'm going to use this in production workflow, and I want to just be able to render everything I want from here. So I invested in another machine with another additional 4 980 Ti's, all water cooled. And so now I just have them synced up. So I really have one just rendering as like a slave, more or less. It's just a GPU render horse. And then, so 980 Ti's. And then the minute I started doing GPU rendering, I was just sold. I can't go back. I get so frustrated with CPU rendering. I really can't speak on Arnold. I know you're a fan, Chad. So just regular, the standard and physical, every time I use them, just seems the things that I want to do and are attracted to in 3D just take forever. It's like, if you look at my renders, it's all subsurface scattering, it's all displacement, it's fog, it's depth of field, it's motion blur. And it's like, I just named the 5 things that you want to like avoid doing in, you know, a CPU render engine. And so, and I feel like that's what made my work a little bit unique too, was because it's like, okay, if I invest in Octane, I can do these things that are a lot harder to do. So you're not going to see as many people doing them. So I don't know. That's,
I feel like the Octane, my issue with Octane's subsurface is that it's so, it makes no sense. Like there's no real math behind it. It's not based in scene units, and it's kind of like this fake transmission looking thing to me. I mean, it's definitely an interesting look, but it has this like, it just makes every surface look like a foggy grape, if that makes sense.
No, totally.
And that to me, like I've used it, you know, I've used it a few times in actual work, and the things I like about it, obviously the look dev speed is like unparalleled. Being able, it's got the fastest, I think, connection to its core engine compared to all of the renderers that I've tested. And what I mean by that is the ability for it to send your scene to the Octane renderer. It's got the most seamless, like fast interaction there that I've come across in other third-party renderers. My issue with it, I think, is just that it feels a little bit like inaccurate, almost like it's not really like in a lot of other programs. When you're doing subsurface, you can say, well, cool, I want my light to penetrate 2 centimeters. Like, okay, let me write 2 centimeters. There's no real way to do that in Octane, which I wish there was. I mean, I could go on a rant about all the things I wish Octane had as well. I'm sure you could too. Light linking, better volumetrics, although I think that's, you know, coming. But so yeah, I guess tell me your favorite things and your least favorite things about working in Octane.
Favorite thing, I mean, it's cliche, but the speed. It's got to be the speed. Like you mentioned look dev, and it's like that's exactly it. You know, I want to be able to see exactly what I'm creating on the fly, see lighting in real time, see texturing in real time. It's like it's just enormous. My least favorite thing, it only happens when I'm working on client work, but no form of a compositing tag is my least favorite thing. Not being able to do light exclusions is hands down my least favorite thing. You don't realize, like when I'm doing personal work, I don't miss it at all. But the minute I start doing client work, I'm like, no, I need that functionality. I need to not see the light, but it's still light the scene, or not be seen in this reflection, but I need to have a little light here, you know, to kind of fill this area in. And that's easily the most frustrating thing for me. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of frustrations. I might have been doing it wrong, but the motion blur didn't seem to work when I was using poly effects on something, and it didn't work on moving the polygons of a surface with an effector. It didn't read that in the motion blur, which I thought was kind of weird, which was frustrating on another client project. You know, just little stuff.
Yeah, I would agree, man. I think that it's like one of those things where recently when I just did the promo thing for Gorilla Grades, I started it in Redshift and couldn't do it because, you know, Redshift didn't have a feature that I needed. It was kind of buggy. So I brought it into Octane, you know, because I'm the same. I don't have 8, but I've got 4 980 Ti's, and I've only got the one machine. And I built it all up and got everything working in Octane. And it was one of those things where you run into situations where you just know you're not going to be able to do a lot of map passes. You know, you're not going to be able to, you just kind of go into an Octane job with the limitations in mind, and just try to get it as far as you can in the beauty. And because, you know, you're not going to be able to do much with passes and whatnot. And then, you know, from my experience, I didn't have that extra machine to dump to. So I knew if I was going to render that entire thing on my workstation, I was basically going to be without a workstation for like 48 hours straight, maybe even 72.
Yeah.
And that is a real problem, I think, for people. And I get this question all the time, like, what are where can I render Octane on the cloud, and I'm always telling them the same thing. I'm like, I don't know of any place that's got it solved yet. Have you ever had to do that?
No, I haven't. I have a system. I don't know if it's the healthiest system, but my system is I don't go to bed until I'm ready to render. And so whether that's 11 p.m. or 6 a.m., I stay up because my feeling is this. While I'm awake, I need to be working on the machine. And the only time I can't work on the machine is when I'm sleeping. And when I'm rendering, I can't work on the machine. So therefore, the only time I can render is when I'm sleeping because I can't work. And so so I'll just set up scenes. And so I'll go to bed when I am like, okay, this scene is ready to render. And I render it out, then get up, usually finish rendering, and then I work on the next scene and just kind of do that, and I'll just knock them all out.
That's such an interesting thing, dude. Like I'm just like imagining in the computer by your bed, like you're just it's like hitting your alarm clock, but you're hitting render.
Dude, it's nuts sometimes. I even like question my own judgment. I'm like, I don't know. It's 6 a.m. And sometimes I have to, because I teach animation classes, like I was mentioning. So sometimes I just have to transition right into teaching. And it's kind of funny because I'll go in there and it'll be 8:30 in the morning class, and all the students are super tired. I'm like, how's your guys' day going? And they're like, oh, I'm so tired. I didn't go to sleep last night. I'm like, I didn't either. Cool. We're in the same boat. It's like, I was up working too. So like, and I'm here, I'm ready to have fun. Let's do this. So I don't know. Yeah, that's my system. So no, I haven't used render farms though. I've had a couple that I won't shout out now, because I haven't gotten to test them yet, that have emailed me and said, hey, can you please use our render farm to render? We'll give you, free credits for as long as you want, just to kind of play with it. And so I haven't used them yet though, but there is a couple out there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for one to kind of break through and become like the first really reliable GPU cloud rendering place. I know Atoy like had that time where they were like, we're going to launch the Atoy, what do they call it? Was it just the Atoy cloud or something?
I think it was just a cloud, yeah, or something, right?
And they were like, oh, it's going to be, the play. It'll be a seamless experience for you to launch your Octane renders on the cloud. And I feel like they talk a big game about a lot of different things, whether it's a new version or that, or, whatever, but they very seldom deliver on any of what they talk about. And that's frustrating. It can be frustrating as a professional trying to build a business off of that piece of software. And you get into, I've run into so many people, dude, that have like gotten into the Octane syndrome, where they kind of paint themselves into this corner with Octane, and then time comes to render the job and it starts to take way longer than they anticipated, and they don't have a machine to dump it off to. And I've had people like rushing to Best Buy to go get whatever they can get in terms of a GPU on its own so they can render. And that's a problem, man. That's got to be, hopefully somebody will figure that out, because that's
true.
It sucks.
That's true.
But yeah, well, that's cool. There was another question I had. I'm trying to remember what it was, but talk to us about your post process. I mean, how much are you doing with your renders, your dailies, and all of the site series and whatnot? How much are you doing strictly in Cinema, and how much is happening in comp with color and all that sort of thing?
I feel confident saying that I do zero post work. I
don't like that.
I know you don't. It's not your thing. I do pretty much zero. I do two things in post. Shameless plug. I've been using the Gorilla Grade.
Wait, did you say you're using the Gorilla Grade LUTs?
Yeah, Gorilla Grade LUTs. I think they're coming out soon, so check that out.
Okay, I now approve of your process.
I've been playing with those just because it's a real simple way to like tweak the look, and kind of blend everything together a little bit. And then on top of that, I'll usually use some kind of denoiser of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it
for your denoiser these days.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I use Magic Bullet, Denoiser, and what's that other one? It's called something film. I think you mentioned it before too.
It's a Neat Video.
Yeah, Neat Video. Yeah, that's it. Neat
Yeah,
Video.
that's a good one.
Yeah. So
That's
kind
yeah.
of
You know, I was trying to figure out a way to get the Gorilla Grade LUTs into Octane's. Octane has these film profile curves that are very much like a LUT. That you can load and you can look at your work with a specific kind of filmic response curve. Typically, I work linear just because I want to do that stuff in post. But I thought it would be cool if somehow we could get the Gorilla Grade LUTs into that format, so people using Octane could just like twirl down our looks right there in the frame buffer.
yeah.
Maybe someday we'll get them to open that up, because for right now, as far I reached out to them, and I think their whole film profile thing is kind of a closed door right now, but we'll
That'd be
see.
pretty cool.
Also, I would love to see Maxon actually get some sort of LUT workflow going in the picture viewer. I think that would be awesome to be able to, in your picture viewer, load up a LUT and either apply it or just have it be kind of live so that you don't, commit to it if you don't want to. That would be awesome too.
Yeah. Because you have the ability to, in the picture viewer, to edit and do some curves and stuff like that. It's super easy, you think, right? Just to toss that in there.
I know, that's what I'm hoping. Hoping that they do that, because there's a lot of talk about color. Every once, color seems to come back in and out of discussion every year or two, it seems like. And right now, I think it's kind of a topic that people are wanting to talk about more. And last podcast we talked a lot about color, and we don't fully, I don't even think we fully understand it, but maybe someday we'll get somebody on the show that can explain it to us in a way that we all actually
Yep, not me.
Yeah, I know. Well, cool. How are we doing on time? We're doing pretty well, actually. We got maybe 5 or 10 minutes left. So, Chris, do you have any questions?
Sure. Dave, I know you just did a big old trip to Australia. You want to hit us up with some highlights?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Actually, the mill was there showing off their car. Some really, really amazing chats there. Pixar had a fantastic talk. Brian Green is his name, I believe.
Was there an event you were at?
Yeah, it's called Pause Fest. Okay. And it's in Melbourne. They have it every year. It's a 3-day event. It's business, creativity, and technology. And they had reached out to me and said, hey, a big part of our fest is our conference is emotion response to our theme, and we'd love for you to do it. And it seemed really cool. And I was like, okay, cool. And they're like, we hand select, 5 to 10 studios and freelancers from around the world to kind of contribute to their response to the theme. And so I kind of jumped on it, and as it was getting closer, I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to go. I want to go to this festival. It seems really cool. I've known a couple people that have traveled out there and said amazing things about it. And so, yeah, that was it. I decided to head on out there. It was amazing. Met tons of cool people, really good talks. My favorite talk, like I was saying, was the Pixar one. They broke down, oh man, I always blank on his name. He is the octopus in Finding Dory, Hank. And they broke down kind of the tech behind the execution of him and the suction cups, and so I nerded out on that. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that's right up your alley, dude.
Oh, it was perfect. It was really good. And then we chatted about the short film Piper for a while. It was just cool, meeting people and being in Australia was super cool. I'm like, I love that Australian accent. It's like the best accent ever.
How long of a flight was that? Just curious.
From leaving from Florida, it was a 24-hour total duration. I had to go from Tampa, Florida to Denver to LAX to Melbourne, and so it was a 24-hour duration. The flight from LAX to Melbourne, I think, was 16 hours or something like that. Yeah, 15, 16 hours. I loved it. I really did. Because I'd never get time that I'm not working, and it was like, I was like, oh yes, I sit here and I just watched a bunch of movies. I was like, this is fantastic.
Did you have one of the, now I took a flight to South Africa once, and I was lucky enough, it was on production, so I got business class. Ooh, and I flew business class Emirates which I felt like I was like the top tier. I felt like the 1%, dude. Like I had my own like little pod thing. I had like, it was insane. Like, did you have that, or were you like coach, or what was that like?
I could not afford that because that is literally
Well, I
like
couldn't
double.
either. I didn't pay for it.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I wish I could have because I wanted to and I looked, but it was double the price of the tickets, and the tickets were already like, you know, $1,500. And so I'm like, yeah, I can't spend $3,000 on a ticket to Melbourne. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
And so I opted out of that portion of it. But I wish I did, because you can actually like recline almost all the way. You've got your own little TV. I mean, yeah.
So you're in coach watching movies for 16 hours straight.
Yep.
And so I mean, this is kind of off topic, but I'm just fascinated by that. I've never been there. I've always wanted to go there. And you know, I've heard it's an amazing place. When you got there, I mean, does everybody have that accent, or is that just like?
Yeah, no, everybody had it. Now they have a big Asian population that I think travels there because it's so close. But everyone else had the Australian accent, and we did a little tour out to some of the oceans and kangaroos and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I just loved it. You know, he's like, and if you look straight on the right, straight over there, you know, there's a wallaby looking over. And I'm like, yo, this is amazing. I love this. This is the best thing ever.
But hearing you do it with like a Philly accent, dude, is
Yeah.
like even better. Like, did anybody say, where are you from? Because your accent, you have a bit of a Philly accent.
Yeah.
And like, were they like trying to make where you were from? Did they probably thought you're from New York, most likely?
It was, everyone asked, it was the first time I was ever out of the country too, so I kind of went all for it, going like all the way around the other side of the world. People were like, where are you from? And I was like, the US. And they're like, we know that, like. And I was like, oh. And yeah, so and then like I'd say Florida, because I'm not gonna be like Philly, you know, I live in Florida now. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, you know, that was it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think anybody has I mean, I don't know. Like, I bet if you had said Philly, they would have been like, "Oh yeah, I see it." But like, if you came up to me with your accent and you told me you're from Florida, I'd be like, "No way, dude. You're definitely from somewhere north of Florida."
Yes.
Anyway, that's funny. That's cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I wish I could travel more, man. Like, the only time I get to travel now is to like if we're going to NAB or SIGGRAPH or something like that. But still, I guess that's better than nothing. But I do miss going out of the country. It was a lot of fun.
Greyscalegorilla Australia trip.
I know we should
sweet.
probably do like a European tour. That'd be fun.
Europe, Tokyo. I'm down for any of those.
Yeah, maybe we'll just like get a road crew, get a van in Europe, and just drive around doing demos.
Yeah, well, it's still in the planning stages, but me and EJ have a Japan trip planned.
Oh,
I think we're going to try and execute in November.
That'd be awesome.
That's
Is
good.
FITC still doing their FITC Tokyo? Because that's what I wanted to go to, if they're still doing it.
Well, maybe we should think about getting a group and like try to plan some of these excursions to these shows outside of the US. I think that would be fun.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
Well, I think we're good here on time. I think that's going to wrap up another Greyscalegorilla podcast. Thanks, Dave, for coming on. It's been awesome having you, and appreciate you taking the time to tell us all these awesome stories.
Heck yeah, I love chatting with you guys.
Do we have anything, Chris, that we need to announce, or any sort of stuff?
No, we got it all covered. Keep an eye out for Gorilla Grade Lutz coming soon. Make sure you follow Dave on Instagram. We'll make sure that's in the notes.
And our pal Nick will be back next week, and he'll be nice and tan. Hopefully he won't have any broken appendages. And we'll be back next week and with more 3D goodness. So thank you, everybody. And as always, if you like what you are listening to and you're on YouTube, give us the old thumbs up, and hit subscribe if you haven't already, and drop us a review on iTunes. It really helps our show out. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you guys.